Hi guys, so this is gonna be a little supplemental video. I've had a couple people recently that are having this issue, and where there is two, there is always more. So I thought it would be a good topic to cover. This information is in my other videos also, but this is just gonna be a more simplified way to explain these issues and troubleshooting. Okay, so the issue that I'm hearing people have are that they cannot get a hair into the head. So the first thing that I want to talk about with that issue is your rooting needle. This top part of your needle, this is called an arm. It's also called a crank. In rooting, we call it an arm generally. These are your barbs. Your barbs are these little notches. These notches are actually what grabs the hair. This is a 40 gauge crown needle that I have right here. This needle size and type would be a good needle to root any type of hair except for adults, except for human hair. This will work for any type of mohair though. So if you're having trouble getting a hair to stick into the head, the very first thing that you want to troubleshoot are your barbs, having them face in the right direction so that they can actually grab a hair. The way that you do that is by paying attention to where your arm is facing. If you are trying to root with the arm facing to your left, it's not grabbing hairs. Maybe the barb is not lined up in the right position. So you would turn your needle with the arm facing up. You would try that again. If it still does not go in, you turn your arm to the right and try again, see if that helps. If all else fails, turn your arm to the bottom position and see if that helps. Generally, when that happens, it is a issue where your barb is not in the right position, and when you turn your needle, it is going to be on one of those sides. This is a crown needle, so it has two barbs, one on the top, one on the bottom. So this should root fine facing up or facing down. All needles are different. There are many different types of needles. I think a crown needle is the easiest one to learn how to use to root with. And it's my personal preference when I'm rooting. I always use crown needles just because I find them to be the easiest to grab a single hair with, and my rooting looks the nicest using these needles. So that is going to be your first troubleshooting. Another one is sometimes, and this does not happen very often, but rooting needles are delicate. In manufacturing, sometimes the barb is not created deep enough. I have had that happen. If you try every single position, every angle with the rooting needle, and it still will not grab a hair, I really recommend that you grab a new needle from your pack, because sometimes there might be something wrong with that needle. When you do grab a new needle, you need to go through the same exact process of trying each time with your arm facing a different direction until you get a hair in. Every single needle, I get my needles from the same place, same pack, and different needles in that pack will need to face different directions. And I have this test head here. And I also have some very dark mohair so that you guys will be able to see. And let me just get you at a better angle. All right, I'm gonna zoom you in a minute, but for right now, I want you to be able to see the position that I'm rooting in. I did warm this head up a little bit, but I'm gonna grab my rooting pillow here just so that it's a little bit easier, and we'll just go right in the middle of the back. So your needle position and how you're holding your needle is very, very important. And sometimes it's not a needle issue, sometimes it's a position issue. So these troubleshooting things are things on your own that you're going to go through until you find what the issue is and how to correct it. If you are rooting like this, straight up and down, even if you are like right on top of the hair, it is almost, well, I did it that time, but it is almost impossible to grab a hair. You want to make sure that you are in the right position, that your needle is facing at an angle like this. Not only will that make your hair lay nicer when you root it, it'll lay flat, but it also makes it easier to grab a hair. And let's zoom you in so that I can just show you what I'm doing. Get that one out of the way. So I'm taking a small amount of hair here. I have my arm facing the correct direction. I'm at the correct angle. I touch the hair that I want to root. I pull it in and I very, very gently move the hairs away. If you pull these hairs away too hard, let's see if I can just demonstrate that really quick. You root, you pull these away too hard, you are immediately pulling out the hair that you just rooted. So you want to make sure that you are pulling just gently, letting go of that hair. It is a lot easier when you have less hairs in your bundle. Another thing that I have talked about a lot in other videos is making sure you have the correct type and size of needle for the hair that you're rooting. If this is regular adult mohair, this is very coarse compared to a lot of other types of mohair. If I were to be trying to use a 46 gauge needle, the actual hair here, each strand would be wider than the barb of my needle. So I would never be able to root one of these hairs because it will never get caught in this barb. And that barb is what is catching and pushing your hair in. So you want to make sure you're using the right size needle. And you know, other times it is just the brand of needle that you're using. I have tried many different brands. You guys know, because I always talk about Cupid Falls, that I love their needles. Everyone that has tried their needles say they're like a game changer, that they don't have rooting issues with their needles. I have tried a lot of different brands, some that are very expensive, and sometimes, like, no matter what I do to troubleshoot, I cannot get a hair in with that type or brand of needle. And I don't know if it's like a defective pack, like I was talking about before. Maybe the barbs were not manufactured to be deep enough, or there's some sort of issue. But if you know that you're using the right size needle, if you're using a 40 gauge crown and using any type of mohair, anything but human hair pretty much, you know that that needle size is probably going to be correct. And you still can't get it, try a different type of needle. Sometimes it is really just as simple as that. The supplies that you're using make all the difference. But the biggest, I would say, like the biggest things to troubleshoot are first your angle. That if you're using the right kind of hair, the right kind of needle, and the wrong angle, you're not going to get a hair. The best way to experiment with that and try to figure that out is just by trying different angles. You know, try to go a little bit flatter. You can move your head a little bit so that it's naturally flatter, and just experiment until you can get a hair in. Once you do get a hair in, you really need to pay attention to how you got that hair in. You know, what direction was the arm of your needle facing? What angle were you rooting at? Those are the kind of little details that are really going to set you up for success if you're having those kind of issues. You know, you can just look at your needle and sometimes you can see the barb, sometimes you can't. It really depends on your vision, lighting, all of that kind of stuff. So the easiest way, just to reiterate again, because this is so important and so simple, all you want to do is try to root a hair, change your angle position, try to root another hair, change your arm position, try to root another hair, change it again, try to root it again. When you get a hair, pay attention, what direction was my arm facing? If you are using a needle holder, I have found a lot of times, I don't personally use needle holders. When I did, I broke so many needles. But also it can change the position of the arm and you don't know. So the easiest way to do it when you're first learning is do not use a holder, just use your needle. And then you can really clearly see your barb, see what direction it's facing. For me personally, it's almost impossible. Like, I have to like spin my needle to get my arm to change direction. If I'm holding it correctly, it's pretty much locked into there. I hold it pretty much exactly the same as I would hold a pencil. And again, the angle that you want when you're rooting is about like this. It is not totally flat, but it is fairly flat. You should be able to grab a hair with your needle and move it like so. Let me zoom you in again for that. So you should be able to grab a hair and move it with your needle easily, like kind of like dragging it along, not straight up and down again at this angle. And I'm sorry if I'm like beating that in here. I really want you guys to succeed, and I want you to be able to, when you're having problems, know what could be causing those problems so that you can experiment and know what things to try to fix it for yourselves. Another issue could be your hair. And I know I've talked about this a lot, about rooting from the cut end. I just did like a really in-depth video, so I'm not going to go over again that cut end. If you want to watch the video that I recently uploaded, the rooting info, it says like cut end, needles, etc. I would recommend that you watch that because I go into depth about the cut end and why it's so important. But if you are trying to root and you try to root more than like 3 or 4 hairs and you cannot get them to go in, your hair could be facing the wrong direction. Depending on where you buy your hair, sometimes they don't sort the hair. Sometimes they just throw it in there. You'll never be able to get a hair to stick in like that. So it's really important to pay attention to where you're buying your hair, how you're, and how you're rooting it. If it's the cut end, you know, you can feel pretty much, this way is very smooth. This way feels rough to the touch. This is the cut end. You want your hair, you want the cut end to be at the top, and you want it to feel smooth when you're running your fingers down. If it feels really rough when you're running your fingers down, you might have mixed up the cut end, and you might want to flip it around and try it from that position. All right, you guys, this is a super short, simple one, and I really hope that that helps you guys to troubleshoot so that you can easily grab the hair. I'll see you in the next one.